Mike Parker along with Angie Machado, the publisher of Beaver Blitz, former Beaver great Tim Ewis. Angie, I want to start with you before we get to a lot of stuff. This show is packed. We've got Mike Riley, we've got Dylan Wynn, we've got Terron Ward on set, another run and catch feature with Cooks and Woods, etc. Just what was your overall takeaway from the Beavers' 6th straight win against Cal?
The defense has gotten better. They've gotten better every game, but I think this might have been their best game yet.
Another game, Tim, where they hold the opposition, the air raid, bear raid, to under 400 yards. Not easy to do.
Not easy to do at all, Mike. They have got better. You're exactly right, Angie. Offense still producing yard after yard through the air, dominating all the teams they've played in the Pac-12 so far.
And this is Tim Ewis, by the way, who was out last week on business on assignment, pinch hit for by Slade Norris, who came through with a Smokey Burgess type pinch hit. Have you ever heard of Smokey Burgess?
I'm not familiar with that reference, Wikipedia.
Well, that's for baseball, and it's October, and Jacoby Ellsbury's in the World Series, so just thought I'd throw in a little baseball reference. But we all did see the Beavers in their dominating 49-17 victory over the California Golden Bears at Memorial Stadium. I don't know about you guys, but I don't get tired of looking at some highlights. So let's take another look at some of the plays that helped the Beavers get to their 6th straight win to improve to 4-0 in Pac-12 play. And it started early, and later on we'll get a chance to talk to Terron. But to score a touchdown back in your hometown, Tim, that's big.
Yeah, just bowling into the end zone like that. That was just pure will. Good job by the O-line. This I love right here. Now a little out and up by a big tight end. Caleb Smith in there filling in for Connor Hamlet. You know, had a couple false starts, didn't play his best game, but came through with a huge catch there.
And this play, just yet another one in a series of unbelievable athletic plays.
And watch him accelerate past everyone there.
The screen game, and he took off at the end. That middle screen has been such a great play for the Beavers this year.
That inside flanker screen, Cooks takes it at the house. Then later, early in the 4th quarter, deep post for Cooks, slightly underthrown. Brandin falls on the football.
It's going for the record, though, Mike.
That would have put him about 10 yards shy of Mike Hass's single-game record. He's helped off the field. He's been practicing. He's good to go Saturday night, homecoming against Stanford. And then Terron Ward. I was really happy for Terron, Angie, to see this for a kid who will join us later on the set. But to get 2 touchdowns back in his home area, Northern California, was big for Terron.
Big. He had all these family members in attendance, and he played a great game. And just to bowl him in like that was good for the Beavers.
Yeah, and once again, Tim, it was not a highly productive game rushing the football, but I think it's important with mighty Stanford and their pound and ground attack. When the Beavers get down deep like that, 2 weeks in a row, they've been able to power it in.
You know, we've seen so far in the season so much play action on the goal line from the 5-6 yard in, and to see 2 rushing touchdowns in the game was a statement by the Beavers that when we get down here, you've seen all this play action, but we can actually rush the football in. 31 touchdowns or 31 first downs by the offense, Mike. That was a statement against California Bears defense.
And the other thing, too, even without Connor Hamlet playing, Sean Mannion finds 12 different receivers en route to another incredible night. 4 more touchdown passes for Sean, 29 touchdowns. He went without an interception again. Just another unbelievable performance for Sean Mannion. Now, on the defensive side, Tim, tell us a little bit about what you saw going on. We've already hit on it sort of as a first takeaway for both of you. Defense, what specifically jumped out?
We knew that they were pass heavy, and we knew that our secondary had to take care of their receivers. And they had the 145-yard play, and other than that, we really kept them in check. 2.5 yards rushing on the average attempt, Mike. That's huge. 19 first downs. You think about that differential between our offense and their offense, the time we were on the field, the amount of first downs that we held them to. A very strong passing offense. 19 first downs, a great job by the Beaver defense.
And the Beavers held them to almost 100 yards under their average in pass game.
Oh, under 300 yards of total offense for a high-powered offense like that.
And they got after Jared Goff, made life very difficult for him early in the game. Scott Crichton was released.
They released the Crichton.
They released the Crichton early.
They released a lot of stuff.
On one series to get a deflection on one side of the line and then on another. A lot of great pressure by the Beavers front 7, which will be very important this Saturday night. But on that note, it's time now for our Taco Bell Top 5. And as you can see, the all-time sack leaders, Scott Crichton is indeed on the list. Slade Norris, our own Slade Norris, number 4 all-time. You see him on #Beavers Football on Friday nights on Comcast Sportsnet. But the guy at the top of the list, Tim Ewis, has a pretty big lead in sacks.
Good heavens. Bill Swancutt, Big Swanee. You know, that guy had a different technique coming off the edge. He had that bowling ball head, and he led with that thing. But he could also bring the rip, the spin, swam every once in a while. Just made it a habit of getting to the quarterback and finishing plays, Mike.
Well, coming up on the show, Terron Ward will join us, talk about his homecoming. Also about how when you talk about pass rushes, the Beavers going up against the league's best, arguably, in the Stanford Cardinals. Well, Beaver Nation, we've already talked about the important news that Brandin Cooks is fine. He's practicing, getting ready to make some more incredible plays this weekend against Stanford. I've never seen a receiver locked in the way that Brandin Cooks is right now. And certainly Sean Mannion is delivering him the football. But Cooks, week to week, is making spectacular plays. Dan Sheldon sat down with Brandin recently, and I'm glad to say they begin with, amongst all the great catches Cookie has had, this may be the best one of all.
Play action fake. Mannion pressured, steps away from it nicely, throws deep for Brandin Cooks into double coverage. Quickly goes up and makes an incredible catch at the 17.
First of all, I was surprised that Sean still threw it.
You know, he's going to find a way to get open, you know, I think regardless of what they're doing.
He stepped up into the pocket, and I felt like I was already downfield. I felt like it was one of those times where it's time to go to the check down, but I'm running, and all of a sudden I see the ball in the air coming my way. I'm like, did he just do that? You know?
Makes an incredible catch at the Colorado.
That's something with Brandin that I've really seen this year is, you know, even when a guy's running with him or even when he may look covered, I can really trust that he's going to play the ball. So if a guy's got his back turned, it may not look open, but with Brandin's ability to play the ball, it really is.
Backfield on 3rd and long, over the middle for Cooks.
I tell him all the time, if it's an underthrown ball or something like that, I will make sure there's not an interception. I'm either coming down with it or it's going to be an incomplete pass. I played some DB in my day, so I'll make sure the ball either hit the ground or I'll take it in. So
it's that level of trust that has led to the most prolific passing and catching combination in college football this year.
And Cooks, the catch, touchdown Beavers.
It's like a 99 miles per hour fastball. Call it a four-seamer because it's coming so fast. Anytime I got a route coming back to the quarterback, I gotta get my hands ready. I gotta talk to him a little bit before.
Well, I try to put touch on it too. You know, I can't just throw it as hard as I can. It's got to be a catchable ball. You know, it's fun for me because I get to throw a lot of different routes to him, but it's also hard for the defense to prepare for him because, you know, he's able to do so many different things from so many different alignments.
While the defense knows Mannion is going to get Cooks the ball, here's an example of how they still manage to make it a surprise.
All right, so this one's basically an out route to the field, especially with Brandin running out of his break. If I can get him the ball at accurate completion, there's a lot of room out there, so. Let's go. You know, it's one of the more challenging routes just because Brandon's so fast and he runs out of his break so well that I really can't leave the ball inside. For me, if I can get my footwork going fast, it's usually not a problem. As long as I just kind of flip it out there, Brandin can come down and get it. If I can get him an accurate completion, there's a lot of space out there for him to make someone miss, and it can become a huge play.
Not every ball is perfect, so I either got to make sure I come down flat. So if it's inside, I can basically push back to it, but if it's outside and it's a dime like it usually is, I'm going to catch. And now it's just one-on-one with the corner and I. And I think Sean's putting his money on me.
Brandin Cooks, and a great feature put together by Dan Sheldon. You can see Dan on game day Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock here on Comcast Sportsnet. Angie, I run out of superlatives when it comes to Brandin Cooks. I don't know how to describe some of these plays. My vocabulary fails me. What words describe Brandin Cooks?
I use bananas, bonkers. Honestly, what can you do?
Tim, we've got some highlights from the Beaver victory. We already saw Cookie and the inside flanker screen. I'm proud of you because you've drawn up some plays. You're going to break them down for us, and I don't even think we're going to see Brandin here. I don't even know how that's possible, but you found a way.
It's too easy, Mike,
Yeah,
if you're
right.
looking at the highlights to get
Yeah.
Brandin Cooks plays, and it's almost unrealistic. We used to, in the NFL, when we were doing our scouting reports, you'd look at a guy, you'd find some star defensive end for another team, or watch a guy that was a great offensive tackle, and you couldn't even get a real scouting report off of it because it was so good. And that's how I feel watching Brandin Cooks film. They try to get a scouting report off of him. It's not even fair. How do we stop this guy? Now, we're going to look at 3 plays from the first quarter, Mike, where it was still a ball game until the end on Caleb Smith's touchdown. And that's why I like to highlight this, because the ball was still being played. So we're going to start it off here. First quarter. Let's check this out. All right, so right now, this offensive tackle should have his eyes up, gathering information. He should see that linebacker coming down with a stacked safety. He should know that Crichton is crossing his face. Look at what happens, Mike. He just lets him right by, and that's a credit to Scott and his athleticism, his ability to rip right here. Look at that move. Come back, make a great tackle in the backfield.
Crichton was on fire in that first quarter, Tim, setting a tone with the entire defensive front. But Crichton in particular, that may have been the best quarter he's had this season and maybe in his career.
You know, he was dialed in. He was prepared for that game. He knew the looks he was going to go against. And let's be honest, the Cal offensive line is maybe not what it once was. Those guys are trying to learn how to gel and come together as a unit, and I knew that the Beavers would be able to take advantage of it.
They were -2 starters in Adcock and Matt Cochran, so they were down. Cal's been banged up all year, but Crichton was released, and he was released again. And what else you got?
He was released again. This next play we got again in the first quarter, Mike. Look at this. We got a 3-down look, and then we have the linebacker walked up in the A-gap. And it's really a simple look. Now, we've talked about running the hoop and ripping around that edge. Now, what we're going to see here is a club and a swim. Scott brought his backup move, essentially. You know, that tackle had prepared for that running the hoop and the rip. And Scott right here, you're going to see it. There's the club. There's the swim. He scores. He gets home. Actually causes the fumble. Monterosa picks it up. You got almost 600 pounds in that backfield, Mike.
In terms of that type of opportunistic defense, too, the Beaver defense, Angie, a ball-hawking defense. They're taking the football away. They're second in the conference in turnover margin.
It's huge, and I think that's a credit to Rod Perry. What he's doing with those guys. Steven Nelson, he struggled that first game and a half. He has his legs under him. Rashad, teams weren't throwing to Rashad's side of the field. Now they are, because they're worried about Steven Nelson, and then Rashad's coming up with interceptions.
You know, coming up later, we'll look at Stanford a little bit more. Those types of moves and plays with a resourceful quarterback like Kevin Hogan. Scotty even showed the ability to not overcommit on that last play. He's going to have that with him against Hogan.
I agree. He really did a great job of playing the play. Now, you talked about the secondary, Angie, and what has helped our secondary is establishing this pass rush and getting guys in the backfield, getting them home.
And on that last play, Dylan Wynn had 2 guys. He was battling 2 guys.
He was taking the double team inside.
We're going, outside to get the quarterback.
You have to pick your poison and decide who you want to block. So, the defense, I love. That pass rush is great. But now to the offense. My, personal favorite, Mike, we're going to check out Caleb Smith here.
A tight end.
Again, Caleb Smith. Now, what we want to look at here, right here, Kevin Cummings coming across in motion. Let's see if this defender goes with him. Sean is constantly scanning the backfield, looking at the safeties, looking at the corners. Nobody runs with Cummings. He knows it's a zone defense. So when Kevin gets over there, it's a 2-on-2 situation. They have a great little out and up head fake there. Caleb goes up high to get it. Sean put that ball where only Caleb could catch it. And we used to run this play with myself and Steven Jackson. And once again, just like picking your poison on who you want to block on defense, who are you going to take away here? The big tight end or the shifty little slot receiver underneath?
And that ball was delivered so beautifully by Sean. And he goes immediately to celebrate with Caleb Smith. You touched earlier a bit that Caleb had some other things that didn't go quite so well. Even the fumble at the goal line, Tim, later at the end of the first half that could have made it 35-3, that was a function of some athletic ability that you can't really teach. Now, he's got to finish it, but to get to the goal line was impressive.
You know, he's almost trying too hard, Mike, and you love that. A guy going that extra mile, giving that extra effort. He's got the yips a little bit at the line of scrimmage. Listen to that snap count and that cadence. He's in a little different position with his hand on the ground now, where maybe he's been in that slot H move guy, and as Connor continues to get healthy, we'll see how those guys' roles change. But he's played very well for a true sophomore.
Well, Caleb, at all tight ends, everybody will need to be involved, not only in catching, but blocking this week. We have more coming up on that with Terron Ward and more as we continue. From Flat Tail Brewing, Talkin Beavers, presented by Wilson Motors. Coming up later on Talkin Beavers, we'll have the next installment of Run and Catch with Woods and Cooks. But coming up next, we hear from Coach Riley on his drive to continually get better. And in fact, it's time for this week's Wilson Motors Game Balls. And we'll start with the big tight end himself, Tim Ewis. Nice catch with two hands.
My game ball, Mike. Wilson Motors game ball goes to the defensive line. I think it was a great job by the entire defense. The secondary shined in that game, but a big part of that was because of the rush that the D-line created. Scott Crichton led that unit, 4 total tackles, 2 for loss. 2 pass breakups. How often do you see 2 pass breakups from a defensive lineman?
On the same series.
On the same series. So I'm going defensive line led by Scott Crichton, but the other defensive linemen did just as good of a job.
No, they did. We're going to hear from Dylan Wynn. In fact, one of them later, Monterosa, had a big game. My game ball goes to, and it's easy, you could give it to either Sean Mannion or Brandin Cooks every week. I'm giving mine to Mannion, not simply for the fact that he threw 4 more touchdown passes and without a pick, but it was the leadership qualities that he showed during the game. The fact that he was pulling guys aside when he was getting to the sideline. Sean Harlow, Storm Woods. He went up to Kellen Clute and said, "My bad, I had you open, I should have hit you." Just the leadership, the poise that Sean Mannion has been showing all season long, not only on the field, but what he's doing on the sideline as a captain and a leader. He gets my Wilson Motors game ball for the great performance.
That is the sign of a great leader, too. And when I was in New England, I got to watch Tom Brady do it and go up and see his O-lineman and say, getting hit is not acceptable. Playing with Drew Bledsoe, incredible leader, commanded, had that presence around his teammates, and it's fun to see Sean developing that, and now the TV camera's starting to show it.
Yeah, it's impressive, no question. Angie, how about you?
I'm going with a little different here. I'm going with Mike Riley. Coach Riley. Okay, Beaver fans, I've heard from you. Coach Riley doesn't have a fire in his belly. He's too nice. We are seeing a different Coach Riley this year, from the 4th down this week where he had Cooks go on the end around, to him getting fired up at the referees on that the penalty, to the fourth down at Utah. He is on fire. He is a fiery coach this year. He is. He sees the wins, and he's
got that edge right now.
He's got an edge.
You know,
and it's something we haven't seen from Coach Riley, I don't think, in a while.
Beaver fans were missing. You know, granted, you know, Sean Harlow had a bad push out of bounds there, but what Coach was politicking for was
Brandin
the late
Cooks
hit out of bounds on the receiver. And that's where you haven't seen him down the sideline getting ready to throw his headset. And I agree. He's got a little fire in the belly. He's excited.
And his play calling, everything. I mean, it's a different Coach Riley this year.
Yeah.
Good choice, Angie, and excellent timing, too, because Tim Ewis, as you know, has been sitting down every week on Talkin Beavers with none other than Mike Riley, and it's been a hallmark of Coach Riley's teams to continually get better. Well, the Beavers have already achieved bowl eligibility at 6-1, and Tim talked to the coach about that.
A lot of the success in a program is determined by how many bowl games they go to, and more importantly, how many they win.
Yeah.
You've always had good success with that, and that's kind of the last thing the fans remember, is that bowl win heading to the next season. And that's where you could start out poorly, but if you win the bowl game, people are going to remember that. So over your career, you've had a good success with the bowl wins. What's the biggest attribute to that?
I think the drive to continually get better. You know, I think that you're right. We've had some stretches where we started out, and you were part of some of those teams that we didn't look very good at the beginning, but the finish was strong. And usually, like for 4 or 5 years in a row, we have won all the bowl games at the end of the year. So it always left that good taste. And I think one of the most important factors, and this is oversimplified, but you have to get better during the season. The good teams will continue to rise, and then the best teams end up playing at the end because they're just growing and getting better as they go. You know, the continual building of the building blocks that go into a season are very, very important. And so what you do coming to work on Monday to improve from the game on Saturday, key element to being one of those teams that can not only go to a bowl game but win it and try to get to the very best bowl game that you can.
Well, Tim, Coach Riley alluded to your own experience as a Beaver under him in 2003, the only year you got to play for him here. You guys finished that season on an incredible high note, 55-14 in the Vegas Bowl. So another bowl is coming. We don't know what it's going to be. What was it like to be on the field that day, Steven Jackson running wild, and those types of experiences? How do they help a program?
Well, what happens is you get to showcase the talent you have on a national level. We're playing on ESPN. We have Steven Jackson in the backfield. We have All-Americans all over the place. Mike Hass reached 1,000 yards in that game. I probably had my most productive game as a Beaver. And it's just fun to celebrate the end of a season with a victory that way. And going bowling, is just a great statement, and the Beavers will do that. They want it to be the best possible bowl for the best possible impact on recruiting. But Angie, already this season has gotten the attention of some people that the Beavers have been recruiting. And I see one name from Pittsburgh, California. I think of another Beaver running back, not Jackson, but Simonton. Is Ken involved in this at all?
Ken is involved. The Beavers picked up a couple commitments this week. One is a running back, Harris Ross, out of Pittsburgh, California. Ken Simonton is the running back coach at Pittsburgh High at his alma mater.
Very nice.
This kid, 5'11", 195. Numbers for you: 154 carries for 1,559 yards, 20 TDs, 1 fumble. The most impressive, however, was he had a game in September, Tim, that he rushed for 468 yards and 7 TDs.
You know, I watched some film of this kid, and what you see is him going into the line. And the rarity now is breaking through the line and just taking off. And you pointed Brandin Cooks out earlier, still accelerating through the end zone. This young man accelerated through the end zone on multiple runs, 50, 60, 70 yards, after almost being stopped at the line. So very powerful runner.
So, another one then that just happened Sunday night, and I think this is the product of Sean Mannion and Brandin Cooks and the explosive passing game. The Beavers picked up a commitment from Datron Guyton from Maynard, Texas, outside of Austin. The 6'4", 180 pounds, but the kid has, I swear, one stride is like 5 yards. The kid's fast, he's strong, and could be a really good addition for the Beavers.
He may be tall, but he's skinny.
He is skinny.
And he could run well. He was fun to watch on film. I think he's going to be a great addition for the Beavers. You can find that 6'4", 6'5" receiver to stretch a field. It's a great opportunity.
Texas, I love it when the Beavers can get guys from Texas because those guys are football players.
Yeah. Indeed. We're going to release the Guyton in the near future. So that's good news. Thank you, Angie, for that update. We roll on Talkin Beavers. Coming up later, we break down the Stanford Cardinal. But next, running back Terron Ward joins us on set. We're at the halfway point of the show so far. We've looked back at the Beavers' great victory over the University of California Golden Bears. Tim Ewis has broken it down for us. We've looked ahead a little bit to Stanford, but there's a lot more on that to come. And to help us do that, we're going to hear from Dylan Wynn and Brandin Cooks and Mike Riley and Storm Woods on all of that. But to give us not only a look at Stanford, but a look back at what I'm sure was a thrilling victory, our on-set guest here tonight from Flat Tail on Talkin Beavers, Terron Ward. 2 rushing touchdowns back home and a big win, Terron. Congratulations to you. To have a game like that, to go home and get a win like that, just tell us what that experience meant to you Saturday in Berkeley.
It was great, to be back home in the Bay Area, to have all my family there, and to luckily have two touchdowns in front of my family, and to beat Cal like that, it was just wonderful. And, we got the win, and now we're ready for Stanford.
You got those rushing touchdowns, and you point up at the stands, and there's a whole, Beaver Nation represented. Yeah. I got to believe a ton of those fans were related to you.
Yeah, like I said earlier, we have 40 or 50 of my family members here, friends, all tailgating before the game, sending me pictures before the game, just knowing that the love is there and the support, and get those 2 touchdowns, it was nice.
So, coming from De La Salle, probably one of the top high school programs in the entire country, what I find interesting from a recruiting standpoint, you came in no offers, and a gray shirt offer. I guess talk a little bit about what the gray shirt offer is.
The gray shirt offer is you come in January after the season. You know, normal recruits, they come in the fall and they play they redshirt the whole fall tournament with the team. As a gray shirt, you come in the winter straight into workouts. You work out with the team, and you get ready for spring ball. And you spring ball, you showcase yourself to see if either you're going to redshirt the next year or you're going to play. Myself, I played my freshman year, and basically that whole winter just gave me time to beat my guys, be friends with the guys, work with the team, and just show them what I can do on and off the field.
Hey, your teammate, fullback Tyler Anderson, who got dinged a little bit against Cal, but will be ready to go against Stanford, here tonight with you at Flat Tail. Dylan Wynn will be joining us. He's also a guy from De La Salle. Angie was touching on this a little bit. We get a sense that sometimes, as great as your program is, maybe some of you are a little under-recruited. What are your thoughts about that?
I think the program at De La Salle, we're so big on brotherhood and being a team that we don't even think about recruiting or putting our players out. Like, if the colleges want the kid, they'll come and see them. Unlike other high schools, you know, the coaches kind of promote their players or put their highlight tapes out there. At De La Salle, we didn't do that. You know, we played every game like it was a championship, and if a college coach wanted you, they'll find a way to you. And in my case, not to me came, and it was ironic because I had a really good senior season. You know, I rushed for 2,000 yards. We went to the state championship. We won the state championship, and not till late January, Coach Riley gave me a call and told me to come on and visit. I loved it, and later that week, he offered me. So I think that's just a program at De La Salle. We don't really think about recruits. We're more about the season itself.
You guys are worried about winning at the time, not necessarily self-promotion.
Exactly.
And that's so prevalent in recruiting today. But let's talk a little bit about your role this year. At the beginning of the season, it had been said that we could have 2,000-yard backs. You know, through the season, you have a few over 300 yards in combined rushing and receiving yards, about 25 a game. But you have been productive when you got your hands on the ball, and a lot of that's in the screen game. So talk about the productivity of the running backs in the screen game.
I think we're big in the screen. You know, me and Storm, we're a very, very good screen running team. When Sean's back there, he's passing the ball 30 to 40 times a game, and they're being productive with him, B. Cooks, Richard, the tight ends, and sometimes the run is not needed. But when we drop back and they see Sean driving back so much, often and often, we slip a screen there, go for 20, 30 yards. It's productive, and we do it a lot in the games.
Now, you're in a 2-minute drill scenario down at San Diego State, and you've been blocking 6-man protection the whole game, and it's such a crucial part of the game for you to be blocking in that 6-man pro. And then you get a chance to score that touchdown at the end and slip out. How much of an emphasis was put on you over the week, picking up those blitzes in every game, in all the game plans?
That's big. That's a big emphasis of any week with Coach Riley. You know, running backs you have to block. You're not going to play. You got to protect the quarterback. And that week against San Diego, we knew that they were going to bring six guys every play, and from different formations, different fronts, and just to be assignment ready and know who you had. And that's what I did the whole game. And it was ironically that I got the winning reception at the end. You know, but,
on a 5-man
protection.
Camaraderie between you and Storm in the room, and cheering each other on when you come over to the sideline. I mean, you make a great play, he's there to cheer you on. He makes a great play, you're there.
Yeah.
That brotherhood, it seems like that's been a big part of your life.
It is good. You know, Storm's a great guy, a great running back. And don't get me wrong, we love each other, but we compete to the fullest. He has a good run. I'm celebrating with him. Like, man, that was a good run. And same with vice versa. But we're always thinking, you know what, we can both do this, and we both
You're still trying to make the next play.
Exactly.
Talk about going ahead to Stanford in pass protection. How big is it for you and Storm to block this week?
It's going to be tough. You know, they have a good defense, a good D front, a good linebackers, a couple All-Americans back. Trent Murphy's a great player, and they have Scove, and they're bringing a lot of stuff from the outside, inside, different fronts, 3-4, 4-3. So it's going to be big, you know, give Sean some time to throw the ball and give our running game and all that stuff productive. So it's going to be good.
Now, you guys have prospered on the road. You had a great experience going back home and your people in the stands at Memorial Stadium. But Corvallis is home for you guys, too, and it's been a long time, it feels like, since you played. How excited do you sense that you and everybody's getting to come out under the lights at Reser for this game Saturday night against Stanford?
I was telling somebody that I practiced today, I feel like I haven't played at Reser for 2 months, you know. It's going to be exciting. Saturday night lights and being in front of Reser crowd and being a big game like it is, it's going to be exciting, and we're up for the challenge.
How nice will it be to, after the Beaver victory, not have to get on a plane and go home.
You know what? That is the worst thing about away games is those night games. We don't get back to Corvallis till about 4 o'clock in the morning. So
and that's what fans don't realize. Yeah. You come back that night and you got to get up and lift the next day on a short night's sleep. So.
Exactly.
And you have school. I mean, you still have class and tests
they're students
and midterms.
It's going to be nice to just win the game and go home. So.
What's your favorite class you're taking right now?
I'm in a telecom class. I'm actually working on the Beaver sports show on campus. So I'm working on that with a couple of students. So that's probably my favorite class right now.
You just take over. Feel free to take over here anytime. You know, if we're not getting it done right, just tell us.
You guys doing a great job.
Over. Hey, Terron, it's been a pleasure to watch you throughout your career here at Oregon State. I get a sense that Saturday night against Stanford is as big a game as, you know, I know you live in a one-week bubble. Yeah. We all get that, and no matter who you're playing, you have respect. But the sense I'm getting, too, is you all feel like, hey, we've won 6 in a row. Maybe people on the outside wonder what it all means. If you're able to knock down Stanford, that almost legitimizes everything you've done this year, it feels like.
The Saturday's a big game. Like you said, we live in a one-week bubble, but this is a big bubble for us, and it's an important bubble. And it's an important game. Stanford's a great team, you know, and we're ready for them.
Terron, thanks for joining us. Have a great time Saturday night. Later on Talkin Beavers, we sit down with Woods and Cooks. But next, we look ahead to the Beavers' upcoming opponent, the Stanford Cardinals. It's time now for our standard TV and appliance rewind, where we look back at one, for me anyway, is one of the great wins in the modern era. The last time the Beavers beat Stanford was 2009, a Rogers Brothers showcase, Tim.
Yeah, you watch the blocking by the O-line here, and they really had it going, pulling people, getting around the horn, quiz, busting through arm tackles, finding pay dirt.
Jaquiz with 2 of his 4 touchdowns on the day, and the other Beaver touchdown comes to a guy you remember by the name of James Rogers. Takes the big hit at the end. No fly came out on that.
That one didn't feel good.
The Beavers at the 31-7 lead at halftime, then go on to win 38-28. Let's take a look now at the BCS standings and the top 25. The Beavers make it in at number 25, Stanford at number 6, and of course we see Alabama and Florida State at 1 and 2. The BCS standings, Tim, showcase a great matchup this Saturday night at Reser Stadium.
Top 25 BCS matchup could be higher if some people on the East Coast stayed up to watch the finish of the Beavers games before they turned their ballots in, Mike. I really believe that.
You know, Angie, that 2009 game, I remember going into it, sort of the showcase, Toby Gerhart, Jaquiz Rogers, this phenom, Andrew Luck coming in. I think if you went to Luck right now, he'd tell you that might have been his worst game in college football.
Oh, definitely. And Oregon State's defense was totally prepared for him. And, I mean, it was a great, like you said, one of the great wins for Oregon State.
We got lucky right out the gate when they ran the running back up the middle and we overthrew the ball.
It is true, but Luck ended up 12 for 30, was picked twice. Toby Gerhart, 96 yards rushing. Jaquiz Rogers, for what it's worth, 189. So that was a great win for the Beavers. But to get it done again this week against the Stanford Cardinal, this is a great team, and they are led, as we talked earlier about with Tim, their front 7, as good as there is perhaps in the country. We talked to head coach Mike Riley and others about that Stanford defense.
Oh, they're really good. Their whole team is athletic all over the place. Every special team, defense, offense, they've got a lot of big, good athletes that play everywhere.
I wouldn't necessarily say that they won't be there. We just got to, hurry our pace up. As a receiver, we got to hurry up and get into our route. We can't take as much time as maybe we usually would going against a front 7 like this.
They're sound. They're really smart. They don't make a lot of mistakes, and for the good teams, I always tell them, like, the false starts, turning a 2nd and 1 to a 2nd and 6 with a team like that, Stanford, they'll take advantage of that. We can't do that against them. We cannot beat ourselves.
The offensive line, Tim, has done a remarkable job this season in terms of keeping Sean Mannion upright, but I want to go Al Jolson here for a moment. They ain't seen nothing yet. I mean, compared to what everybody else, Stanford's in kind of a different league when it comes to pressure.
They really are. That front 7, Scove, especially Gardner, Murray. Murray's got 7 sacks on the year, Mike. The Beavers will have to protect. They held UCLA to 16 first downs. It is a tough front 7. They're going to have to out-scheme them, and then they're just going to have to outwork them. The key to this whole game is they've seen some good receivers. They see Gaffney every day in practice, and Hogan can move around a little bit when they're doing their ones versus ones. And then it's Hogan's first full year starting, but they ain't seen Brandin Cooks yet.
Sorry about all the ain'ts, but we're kind of channeling our inner Jolson here tonight on Talkin Beavers. Now, the Beavers have a front seven that's also, as we've seen and looking at some of the highlights, very tough in its own right, and they need to be against a resourceful quarterback, a great running back, the heavy power sets of Stanford. I had a chance to talk to Dylan Wynn about all of that.
We're definitely excited. Stanford always is one of the top teams in the nation every year, and their offensive line is by far the best O-line that we'll see all year, and it's a great challenge. We feel like we're playing pretty good football, and they're always playing really good football, and so it's going to be a war out there, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I personally always look forward to Stanford week because I'm more of a run-oriented kind of guy, and I'm more of a power guy, and you don't find better than Stanford.
You grew up in the Bay Area, so did you have any interest at all in Stanford football growing up?
I had an offer from Stanford, absolutely. I checked them out, and I like how they play and everything. It's just Oregon State felt like more like home, and so I ended up coming here. But I absolutely respect Stanford. As far as I'm concerned, they're the best in our league, and we got to treat them as such.
Dylan, what's the biggest keys for you guys defensively against a power-oriented team and their heavy sets that you have to deal with?
It all goes down to fundamentals. You have to do your job, and you got to trust your teammates are going to do their job. And when it comes down to it, when you get against bigger guys that are more technically sound than the rest of our league, the margin for error is so much smaller. And so we got to buckle down and really have our game be on point.
And finally, what about Kevin Hogan and the Hogan factor? And last year, there were times it looked like you guys had him. He showed some mobility and got out. What did you learn from that you hope to maybe do better Saturday?
He's an athlete. He's definitely an athlete, and it's interesting to see how Stanford is utilizing him, more of an athletic running back or a quarterback. He's like a running back too, but Stanford's always had athletic quarterbacks. I mean, even with Andrew Luck and all them, it's something you have to take into a factor, but you can't let it control your game.
Later on Talkin Beavers, we will give our one thing that the Beavers must do to secure the win against the Cardinal. But next, we hear from Storm Woods and Brandin Cooks in our feature entitled Run and Catch. This isn't the only show where you can get your Beaver fix, as it were. Hashtag Beavers Football every Friday night at 8 o'clock. Slade Norris joining Tim and Katie Brown, so be sure to watch that every Friday. Saturday morning, it's game day at 9 o'clock here on Comcast Sportsnet, and then post-game live every Saturday night at 10:30 to recap the weekend in college football. And it figures to be another tremendous weekend for Oregon State at home against the Stanford Cardinal Saturday night at Reser Stadium. And two guys that have figured prominently and probably will so again, Storm Woods, Brandin Cooks, in time for this week's edition of Run and Catch.
Most admired athlete?
Well, it's a lot of them, but if I have to pick one, I have to pick my man right here. LeBron James, MVP. I think it will be the greatest to ever do it. I just like his work ethic. And, you know, he's criticized a lot, but that doesn't matter. He just goes out there, works hard, and balls.
I probably have to go with Deshaun Jackson just because, you know, I like his style of the game, how he plays receiver. And he's not the biggest, but he's the fastest, I feel like. And, you know, he gives, you know, credit to us smaller guys that a lot of people might say we're undersized, but he do a great job for the Philadelphia Eagles.
A little bit of an out-of-the-box choice for Storm Woods' favorite athlete being a basketball player. Did you know that, Andrew?
I did not know that. That was surprising.
I didn't know it
Learn
either.
something every day.
He picked a pretty good one in LeBron James.
At least he didn't say Kobe.
No, Michael's greater than all.
Exactly.
Right? Okay. Right? You all understand.
That's a different era, Mike.
I'm sure Storm has heard of him, though. But with regard to Brandin Cooks and Deshaun Jackson, and we see the numbers that Brandin and Deshaun have put up this year. Brandin just, of course, off the charts. Deshaun Jackson, a very good player and productive. But it's not surprising in some respects, as Brandin said, Tim, that Deshaun Jackson he favored because they're somewhat similar in the way they play the game.
Side by side, very similar looking athletes. You know, both a little smaller, both a little more slender, although strong and a lot of fast twitch muscle there. But they're both fly sweep type guys. That's their bread and butter. They can get around the horn, but they also have great breaks on those 5 comeback routes on the outside. And then they can take a guy deep, and they still accelerate through the end zone. And so very, very similar players. And whoever gets a chance to coach Brandin and have them on their team in the NFL will probably feel just about as lucky as the team that has Deshaun.
Well, with due respect to Deshaun Jackson, I somehow hope that years down the road, Deshaun might be asked who his favorite athlete is, and maybe he'll reciprocate. It could be the great Brandin Cooks. Coming up next on Talkin Beavers, we give you our one thing the Beavers must do to defeat the Cardinal. It's time for the one thing. The one thing the Beavers have to do to win another football game, trying to make it 7 straight Saturday night. Tim, it seems like it's usually more than one thing required. What do you have for us this week?
Mike, this week, my one thing is going to be 2 things.
Okay.
Number 1, rush the passer. Just as they did against the California Bears, they have to get to Hogan. They have to disrupt him. That can do nothing but help the secondary. They've been so great in coverage, but they may need a little extra help. And Stanford's been great up front in protection. What else we're going to have to do? We talked about the Stanford front 7. We're going to have to block those guys in the pass game. Passing's been our bread and butter this year, and we have to stop a guy like Murphy that has 7 sacks. They're going to have to pass protect.
I think keeping people fresh and the rotation of fresh bodies. We saw what UCLA, what happened to them against Stanford in that 4th quarter. They fed Gaffney, and he wore them out in that 4th quarter.
Those big guys, we're going to have to put those bodies in there again. Where we've been playing Wynn at nose tackle, I would not expect to see Wynn at nose tackle the majority of the game.
So that was several things, but Angie, what's your one thing?
I've got one, and it comes down to sound special teams play. The Beavers have to be focused on special teams. Stanford's so sound in every aspect of their game. Beavers cannot give up any big plays on special teams, and they have to try to bust one loose.
Ty Montgomery leads the nation in kick returns. He's had 2 touchdowns this year, a 100-yarder against Utah. Barry Sanders, may have heard of him, is a great punt returner. So there's a lot of, that's a great one. Special teams could be the decisive factor in this football game. My one thing, the Beavers need to keep Hogan contained. When he breaks out of the pocket, Trent Bray, the linebackers coach, said that's going to happen, but we got to keep him from getting the first down. And Hogan, I thought, last year made plays that ended up helping Stanford win that game.
Mike, I'm going to talk about it in my CSNNW blog this week, but Hogan extends plays. That's how he beat the Ducks last year. That's how he beat us. We have to stop that.
So we hope that you tracked with us on those 1, 3, 4, 5 things. It's going to take a lot. The Beavers' best effort of the season. We look forward to talking about it again next week here from Flat Tail Brewing on another edition of Talkin' Beavers. So long, everybody.